pretty new one that actually senses how much water it senses the load size.
So we should not recommend that people who don't have that feature do this, because if the washing machine says, I'm about to fill up with 3 gallons, and you already added 3 gallons, now you got 6.
I don't think we should recommend people do much of what we say on this show.
Welcome to the Fine Home Building Podcast, our weekly discussion of building, remodeling, and design topics aimed at anybody who cares deeply about the craft and science of working on houses. You are listening to Fine Home Building staffers Rob Yagid, Brian Pontolilo, and me, Justin Fink. Say hello, fellas.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. First, before we get started, our email address, fhbpodcast@taunton.com. That's where you can send us your questions and topics for discussion. We've been getting awesome stuff lately. Please keep it coming. You guys are making the production of this show much easier. There's a lot of good stuff to choose from. It's awesome. Anybody have any big pressing matters before we just jump right into questions?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I have a question.
Is it a public service announcement? Oh, it's a question.
It's a question. It's a question for you guys. It's a legitimate home building question for you guys.
This was not.
This is not in the script.
This was not part of the pre-show.
I know.
Let's do it on the cut. All right, we're gonna listen this time, Rob. Not like that. Not like that water heater thing.
What happened to that?
Remember when he started asking us?
We just talked over it.
Started telling a story, and it turned into a question at the end, and neither of us were paying attention.
Oh, right.
Yeah. This is not a trick question.
All right.
But it did just jump to my mind because I was up on my roof this weekend just cleaning out the gutters. The leaves are starting to fall, and I'm trying to keep them.
Hey, man.
Keep them open. And I have
You're an inspiration to all of us.
Thank you, Justin. I have an easy roof to get on, I have easy gutters to clean, so don't beat yourself up too much.
It's not working that hard over there.
Anyway, I was up on the roof. I have a simple gable. One pitch faces south, directly south. The other pitch faces directly north. Southern side gets good amount of sun every day. The roofing material stays in nice shape. That was true before the previous roof that I had down. The front side probably had 10 years left, and the backside needed to be replaced. So I replaced it all, obviously. And now, after maybe 5 or 6 years...
Something about Brian
Justin.
talking.
Pay attention, man.
It's like hypnotic.
Well, he's getting into story mode. We're back at when he first bought the house.
I'm giving you the details.
Just get to it, Brian.
Oh, that's what my mom does, too.
Yeah. Why do you think you're doing it?
Yes. Oh, man. I always say it.
Get to it, Brian. What's the question?
Every story starts the day she was born.
We don't need to know what the quality of the former shingles were like. I mean,
what is the question?
All right. So the back roof has some moss growing on it.
Thank you.
All right.
What do I do?
Thank you. We didn't need to know any of the rest of that.
Clean it off. Yeah. Move on.
Yeah. What are we doing here?
Clean it off. How do I clean it off?
Well, if you know it's going to be a problem and you're going to continue to get moss, you might consider adding something like zinc strips up near the top.
Yep.
And I think we've talked about this before, have we not? Where it tucks up under the. Jeff is indicating that in the affirmative. Yes, we have talked about it.
Yes.
It tucks up underneath the upper course shingles, and as rainwater hits it and runs down the roof, it will some of that metal, some of the natural parts of the metal will leach off, and I think it works by changing the. I shouldn't try and guess how it works. I think it's the pH, but
something like that.
Somebody who knows more about that will.
The acidity.
And it prevents moss and everything from growing and taking root. As far as getting it off of
As far as getting it off.
Yeah. I've never had to really do much of this. So, but my brother and sister-in-law just went through this, and it was like for years of me going, I don't want to nag you, but you probably should because I could see it getting worse every season. Like you should probably get some of that spray that you can hook up to your garden hose. It's like the little bottle like you'd use for window washing outside, like the Windex thing, but it's for cleaning roof algae, and just kind of douse it and let it, kill all the mildew and stuff. And
so there's a specific product.
I think there is, yeah, but it ended up that they hired somebody to do it, and they actually went up on the roof and mechanically removed it, and it was like it was a job.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't like they were scrubbing, and they were and they have some kind of a guarantee like it's not going to come back for X number of years. So that makes me wonder, based on what my sister-in-law was saying in terms of how hard they were apparently working. It makes me wonder if it's not as simple as just spraying it down.
Yeah.
I would be tempted to use like a mild bleach solution or something like an outdoor bleach. But there's a lot of risk to this cleaning thing. Like when I say scrubbing the roof, you don't want to remove the granules.
Right.
You don't want to put on something that's going to change the color of your roof.
You don't want to bleach the shingles, yeah.
I don't know if bleach would actually bleach it.
Do anything to that
Because
material.
we're talking about colored granules and then tar under asphalt under it. So what's really gonna?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you're not gonna bleach the color out of asphalt. I don't think. I'm not sure that's possible. Maybe it is. What you don't want to do probably is go too crazy with a pressure washer.
Right.
Blow all the granules off.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting is what's interesting to me is that the moss
good caveat.
grows. The moss grows where one shingle laps onto the other. So the bottom edge of a shingle doesn't grow anywhere in the field of the shingle.
I think that's where the water sits.
Water sits there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You always notice when a roof starts to dry off after a storm, that's always the part that's wet longer. And I don't know, maybe it's in like a little tiny shade.
And also
Very small slice of shade.
Micro shading.
Yeah.
it's in a lot of shade. Where the shingles have moss, they're starting to cup.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Oh.
Oh, you were saying it's in the shade, so this is like beneath a tree that's overhanging the roof?
Correct.
Take that tree down. Or take the branch. That's
Not possible.
suspect. Not possible.
Not possible.
Neighbors' trees. And lots of them. And big. Large.
Large trees.
Yes.
Expensive trees.
Expensive trees. Yes.
Could you suspend some sort of daylighting apparatus over your roof to try and compensate for
A
the
mirror?
shade?
Yeah.
Maybe a mirror, maybe just a giant bank of lights. Try and get some extra sun on there.
Thanks for your help, guys.
No problem. Okay.
All right.
We got some other questions too, not just Brian's. Thank you for that question, Brian. That was very nice for you to bring to the table.
We've got to keep the show going.
Would have been great if you would even let us look into it a little before we started answering. Jason writes, I'm building a 16 by 16 screened-in porch here in Buggy, Maine, and I have a question. I've built a wall and floor insulated system for my room in hopes of converting it to a part of the house someday. The question today is flooring. I want to use that tile that looks like wood planks. My concern is that the bituthane membrane I put over the subfloor and how thin set for the tile will adhere to it. My two thoughts are either to apply Schluter-Dieter membrane or cement board. I don't know if the Dietra or the cement board would stick to the membrane using thin set. I cannot screw down the Dietra, although it would be my first choice product, so I'm wondering about backerboard and screws without thin set. Hindsight, I think I would have not done the bituthane and just done the Dietra right over the deck because I don't believe the wind-driven moisture I see coming in would be a big problem. I love it. It wasn't even like a joke that he put that in there, just wove it right into the sentence.
Seamless.
Just seamless. As if that's what he now thinks it's called.
Because that's what it's called.
Because of Rob. I also am building storm windows that I could easily install if the weather is going to be bad. Thoughts? Okay, so basically what we got with Jason is a porch it sounds like he's concerned about, because it's partially open, he's concerned about water coming in and soaking down into his insulated floor system. So the photo that he sent us a few photos of the assemblies, and it looks like he covered the whole subfloor with peel and stick membrane, the bituthane, and now he wants to know, how do I lay down tile over this? Is that anything that I'm missing? Are you guys getting the same?
That's what I'm getting from
Same scope of question here.
I think so.
So I guess the first thing we got to sort of dig into for people who aren't familiar with bituthane.
Proprietary product made by Grace and GCP Applied Technologies. I guess WR Grace split a few years ago, so they each have a bituthane product. It could be in sheet form.
Oh, that's why two companies make it. Okay.
Yeah, it could be in sheet form, and then it could be fluid applied.
Yeah.
And it's used as a waterproofing membrane for horizontal surfaces just like this, or for foundations. In commercial applications, it's used for parking decks and green roofs, things like that. So it's definitely meant to be waterproof.
It's like
durable.
I think it's the original peel and stick membrane. It was like from the 50s or 60s that they invented this thing, and it was supposed to be a factory consistent solution, compared to like hot applied stuff like hot mop, and like it comes out to the same thickness in a sheet. You peel off the.
I mean, I did look into the technical specs a little bit. I didn't get a crystal clear answer. They were saying that if you were to apply it over a subfloor, that plywood should be have an exterior grade 1 rating. But they did make mention that you could then cover it with tile.
Really?
Yeah. But again, they didn't get too specific.
Right.
So I felt a little bit better about what his approach would be, but not 100% confident.
Sounds like it might then become a question for the tile thin set manufacturers.
Yeah. They're going to punt it. Sounds like it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's so bitchethane is it's different than ice and water shield. I mean, it's very similar. Just for people who are trying to picture it, I've never used bitchethane, so I just found this a little bit interesting that it's sort of like a double thick ice and water shield. Ice and water shield has the same sort of woven rubbery membrane on the outside, but ice and water is, which by the way is a brand name, a Grace product. Not all of these are ice and water shield products, but speaking at it kind of like Kleenex or Q-tip, which are apparently both bathroom products for some reason.
Q-tip falls into that category?
I believe Q-tip is a brand name. Yeah.
Right, but I'm wondering, does anyone else make a Q-tip?
Yeah, you can get them at Walmart. They're W-tips.
Really?
I swear. Or they were.
Awesome. All right.
I think they would be cotton swabs, Brian. Wouldn't they? Isn't that what that's called?
Let's go.
Let's go. I'm sorry. My bad.
You
My
did
bad.
this.
My
You
bad.
did. So ice and water shield has like a non-slip surface that bitchethane doesn't. And bitchethane is thicker. And apparently it's slipperier because you want it to, when you use it for coating a foundation or something, you want the stuff to be... Sorry, Brian is staring at me so intently. It's freaking me out.
He's interested.
He's like leading in.
I'm trying to learn something.
So it's bitchethane has like a smooth, slippery surface, so that when you have frost heaves and things, it will slip by the membrane. So that's the differences. But what I found interesting is that certainly bitchethane doesn't care if it's up against concrete or like a thin set because
that's what it's made for.
It's what it's made for.
Yeah.
And people use it in some parts of the country use it under shower pans. Like the waterproof.
I think it's recommended for that.
Yeah.
I think you have to be careful if you're, it could degrade in the presence of like petroleum products and really heavy duty solvents.
Sure.
You need to be mindful of, but for masonry applications, I mean, it's.
But here's the deal: like when you're doing a mortar bed shower, I mean, you're using this as like you have kind of that perimeter of stud work that you're putting your shower in, and you're just packing dry mortar over this membrane. It's not quite the same as like trying to adhere a floor to it. I don't feel like you're sort of creating this little floating mortar bed that's not stuck down to the floor. But so now
and I also think with a tile floor, your concern is grout cracking.
So decoupling.
Decoupling, which is much more likely to happen than shower pan.
Sure.
A shower base cracking with a little movement.
So that raises an interesting question because like the original uncoupling solution was a little bed of sand. That's like where this whole like Ditra and everything comes from is they would put down like a big foundation of stone or whatever it was, and then a thin layer of sand, and then cement and the tile set in the cement. And that sand provided that bond break that absorbed a little bit of shifting.
Yeah.
Now with the Schluter, it's kind of like that.
Does the same with like that fleecy.
Yeah, that fleecy.
It's like a
layer.
The interface between the fleece and the plastic.
Yeah.
But could the same technology, the same concept be applied to something like this? Because, could you put, I mean, you wouldn't do this obviously, but could you put a layer of sand? Oh, damn, you wouldn't do that, but could you,
all credibility out the window.
No, but could you do something that achieves that
This
concept?
is what we're going to recommend. A sand bed.
Yeah. Could you do something that achieves that same concept?
Well, he
Some
brings
sort
up
of a bond break.
Well, he brings
That's
up
what
the
he
use of
needs to do,
Schluter,
right? He needs to use a uncoupling membrane in this situation.
But I don't think you can stick an uncoupling. If your problem is thin set adhesive, how are you going to stick an uncoupling membrane down to the bitchethane?
Yeah. So the question is, can he? Yeah.
Because
that's how you apply the Schluter.
Yeah.
It seems like it would be. I mean, what is the thin set really going to stick to rubber roof membrane? I mean, it doesn't seem likely.
You got to talk to the thin set manufacturer for sure.
Maybe if you put down like mesh or something, and then
something to grab onto,
I mean,
a little tooth, if you will.
Yeah, something to give it some body.
So what would you? You wouldn't screw it. Obviously, you're not going to screw down cement board, backer board.
It's like, look, I mean, he sort of answered his own question. Hindsight.
Yeah.
He should have done Ditra right over the plywood deck. You can use that to waterproof your deck, and it's a good tile substrate.
Yeah.
But I understand it's hindsight.
Yeah.
Don't think of everything, and you're certainly not going to peel this stuff up at this point. So I could see you. You could put down a plywood underlayment over it.
1/4 inch.
Yeah.
Sheets of plywood.
I mean, float it?
I guess it depends whether he has any height issues.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Nail down subfloor.
And then do Schluter over that?
Yeah. Or just tile over it. I mean, you can tile over.
True.
Over plywood. That's what it's made for. You could also do the cement board route. I don't see... I guess if you're going to put down cement board, why not just put down plywood? I don't know... I mean, I guess there could be concerns here about if you end up getting moisture under the tile, then it's trapped between.
But I think no matter what, right? Like this idea of uncoupling, that's the issue. So if if he screws down plywood sheathing and attempts to tile directly over that, this deck is still moving. The framing's all moving. Is he not more susceptible to cracking of the tile then?
I think he still needs, especially because he wants to use large format tiles, right? So it's still advantageous to do the Schluter. Even if he puts down the 1/4 inch plywood, then you're going to do the Schluter on it.
And I think you do because you already, otherwise you risk getting water under the subfloor or whatever you put down, and then it's trapped against the bituthane and can only dry up.
And now that plywood's rotting.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think it's a 1/4 inch sheet of plywood if possible, because he might have transition issues. I don't know if it's but if possible, 1/4 inch sheet of plywood. Then the
first choice is if he can find a thin set that says it's okay to stick it to this stuff. Then you put the Dietra down and you're good to go.
Yes.
For people who don't know what Dietra is, I guess we should have said it's the orange waffly tile membrane. That I mean that would be my solution. Did you guys see the pictures of his insulation in the floor?
I did. He's got we've talked about this, how to insulate kind of an elevated structure.
He's got what, bats and then rigid foam on the bottom of the joists?
He's got rigid foam on the bottom of the joist, then bats with face bats with the facing up.
So
he's got house wrap over the.
What's the house wrap for? That's on the very bottom. It's like the last layer.
It seems like that's wrapping the rigid foam at the bottom, and then he's got this.
But that seems unnecessary to me.
The house wrap.
Yeah. What is it providing?
Where is it?
If anything, if you have moisture coming off the ground, if you have evaporation happening under your deck, under whatever this thing, the porch, it's going to be easy for that evaporating moisture to go right through that house wrap, where it will possibly condense and then puddle. I might be tempted to get rid of that.
Oh, so you're
house wrap.
I see what you're saying. You're
or at least have a little more information about
what condenses on the rigid foam, and now it's bulk water, and it can't get back out from underneath the house wrap.
I guess it won't do any harm there. It's just going to kind of pool if it does become a problem. Maybe watch it and see what happens. I would also be sure to be putting down some gravel underneath this thing, because gravel is your best bet for diffusion.
Diffusing diffusion.
Yeah. Oh, and while we're on the topic of these plank tiles, those kind of wood-looking tiles, which I agree are kind of cool looking, those are considered, like Brian said, those are considered a large format tile, even though they're long and narrow. I think large format is technically one side of the tile is it 14 or 15 inches or larger? I can't remember the exact number,
something like that.
So they qualify as large format, and you need to install them using large format techniques, which means special large format thin set. And most people, when they're installing these, use some sort of a like tile
leveling system.
There we go. They could be those little wedges or little screw down clamps that they pull everything tight and flat until the thin set sets up, and then you pop them off. And that's not really like a best practice. It's like I think you pretty much want to do that unless you want to have major lippage issues from tile to tile.
Yeah, and I don't know, we were talking about this at one point. Like, don't large format tiles typically maybe in plank form or not? Don't they almost have like a camber to them?
They tend to, when you fire them, because they're porcelain, and when you fire them, they can have like a subtle arch to them.
Yeah.
And so if you do like a running bond pattern where it's, where they're staggered every other, like half lap kind of a deal, it will really show those differences in height. The lippage will be really obvious, but those tile spacers the tile leveling will actually kind of pull down the center of those arched up tiles and and hold it flat while it sets up. But that's what, and you need to back butter the tiles, and you need to also put it on the floor. So we have an article on that we just did. I don't think we did plank tile in it, but it was for large format, kind of heads up, and Mike can throw that up for you there. And that will be helpful for you before you tile the floor, Jason. Let us know about that house wrap. I'm interested to hear what your kind of thoughts were behind putting up the house wrap. Maybe I'm just not thinking of some function that it's serving. All right. Andy writes, hey guys, I'm building a house and had a thought on the crawl space. I figured I'd run by you before I do it. The house is about 3,200 square feet in the main floor, and there's about 1,000 square feet of crawl space that adjoins the 2,000 square feet of walkout basement. We're missing 200 square feet in there somewhere, but we'll find it. I live in North Carolina, and I'm a realtor by day. I always see vented crawl spaces that are disgusting and moldy, and I would like to circumvent this by sealing and encapsulating the crawl space. On the earlier shows, you guys have talked about how much you liked your heat pump water heaters, so I decided I would use one single 80-gallon heat pump water heater. Here's my question. Typically, when people seal and encapsulate a crawl space, they run a dehumidifier. My thought is I could skip the dehumidifier and use the heat pump water heater for that purpose. I would obviously check humidity levels throughout the first year, but if this did work, it would kill two birds with one stone. What do you guys think? Will this work? Oh, and since you're always seeking more information, the crawl space is a big open rectangle. There are no parts that are closed off. It's about 6 to 7 feet tall, depending on where you're standing. So the heat pump water heater will fit just fine. And he plans to insulate the outside walls with 2-inch foam, EPS, and put in a 12 mil reinforced poly moisture barrier. I'll also have the indoor heat pump system in this crawl space area. We'll have a condensate pump to pump out the condensate for both. Love the show. Keep up the good work. So, crawl space ceiling.
Sounds like he's on the right track. That cross-link. Is that what he's using for his...
yeah, I mean, if you're up to 12 mil, I imagine it's probably
that's pretty beef. That's like a pool liner.
That ripstop stuff that has like that woven grid in it to make it stronger.
So he's going to have the heat pump for his space heating in his house in the crawl space. Is that what he's saying?
No. Heat pump
space
water
heating,
heater.
water heater.
But then at the end, he says, I will also have the indoor heat pump system. Is that something different, or is he still talking about the water heater?
I don't know what he's talking about there.
I'll also have the indoor heat pump system in this crawl space area, and we'll have a condensate pump to pump condensate out for both.
It's not a...
So I think he's talking about having his heat pump.
Like a mini split?
Why would he have the...
I don't know.
Well, you can't do that.
Like the compressor's not going to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. That's what
He's
I'm
not going to have a head unit down there.
Well, you can't do that. Let's skip that part.
Okay.
You can't do that.
Unless it's ducted. Would the air handler be in there?
Andy said he was going to give us more information, and he didn't give us everything. We always got to find something we don't know. Your house is going to blow up, Andy.
So focus on the water heater.
Focus on the water heater. Well, I can say anecdotally that has worked in my basement.
Same with mine. I have shut off the dehumidifier, and it works great.
Yep.
It's going to be the time of year where I got to switch it out of heat pump only mode.
Go to hybrid?
Go to hybrid. Get a little of that electric resistance mixed in. Are you finding the same, Brian?
Or do you run yours just on one setting the entire year? Set it and forget it.
I've set it and forget it.
Okay.
Heat pump only, baby.
Oh my God. So I think we should probably just do a little recap here of the basics of crawl space sealing.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Well, for one thing, I think Andy's got it.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. There are a couple of details to sealing a crawl space that he mentioned. Two of the big ones, which are that the walls need to be insulated, and I think that's a code provision. You have to insulate the walls for a sealed crawl space, which he's intending to do, and that you then run, the poly along the floor, up the walls, fasten it to the walls of the crawl space walls with some horizontal battens, seal all of that poly with tape or mastic, or however you can best seal it. One of the things that interestingly, and this is more of an installation detail, but it comes up every time we talk to people about sealing the crawl spaces, is to really clean the floor. If you have did he say what it, a concrete floor or dirt floor?
I don't think he said it.
He didn't say.
Okay, so often they
He
have
did
dirt
say
floors.
the height varies, so I'm guessing it's dirt.
Yeah. Often crawl spaces have dirt floors, and it's really important that you pull out any rocks and any other debris that are just going to puncture, put holes in that poly. What else? What else do we need to? You can take insulation out of the floor system if you have insulation there.
Yep.
Get that right out of there at that point.
Get it out of there.
Be sure to pay attention to the rim, though.
Get it out of there. You have to insulate the rim.
Air seal that bad boy.
Air seal the heck out of it.
The heck out of it.
The heck out of it.
And close up the vents, right?
Close up the vents.
But you got to
You got to condition it.
You got to duct some heat down there.
You got to bring some conditioned air from the house into the crawl space.
Because that's
and blow it out.
It's kind of not the Achilles heel, so to speak, but maybe in certain really high performance houses with heat pump water heaters, they actually cool the space. Have you heard that before?
Yeah, they will cool.
Oh,
space,
yeah.
Yeah. So definitely need to run
Yeah.
some heat down there.
Yeah. So one of the
I think you just put like a grill between your floor and the crawl space, maybe,
And you're good.
Make sure you have enough airflow to meet whatever the requirements are for code. I don't know what they are. It must be some sort of this much airflow down there, or I'm sure that I would imagine they're not just saying you got to have some air going down there. There must be some kind of criteria for how much. And
I mean, you're adding a bunch of square footage then to the conditioned space.
Right.
Would you then live in our ideal world, would you want like a heat load calculation to ensure that whatever your current heating system is up to the task to also condition the extra, would you get another 1,000 square feet to heat?
I guess, yeah.
It's worth talking to your HVAC contractor about.
Yeah.
So we have
especially if it ends up costing you like, oh, and now I got to get a new furnace. That was stupid.
Right.
I should have just not done that.
Yeah, I mean, just put it on the list of things to research.
To worry about.
And worry about.
We have an Energy Smart details on this that we can put up.
What's it called?
Stealing your crawl space.
Dynamite.
Yeah,
Perfect
Mike will
title.
find it easily. It was
Perfect
a
title.
Searchable title.
Nice.
Findhomebuilding.com/podcast.
And this detail we suggested is a floor register, just like you mentioned, from the first floor into the crawl space, and then it had an exhaust-only fan in the rim.
Slightly depressurize it.
Slightly depressurize it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
So it's kind of sucking on the whole house.
Reverse stack effect.
Yeah.
We're fighting the stack effect.
Fighting the stack effect.
I think it's just to get some air,
Yeah.
some airflow through there.
Yeah.
You're not drawing anything in from outside. You know where it's coming from.
Yeah.
Okay, so for the heat pump water heater, because he's talking about using it for a dehumidifier, for people who don't know, let's just recap what that is. Brian and I both have the same one, and essentially what you're doing is you're using a refrigeration coil to pull heat out of the ambient air and use it to heat water. So there's a byproduct of that, which is it exhausts cool, dry air out of the unit as well as condensate, a little drip of water. So so when you have one of these, it's a little bit noisier than a regular water heater because you have a fan. I don't find it to be too loud. I imagine if you had it in like a utility closet on your first floor, it might be. It probably varies by brand too. So there's that. There's some filters to clean. So you'll want to make sure you have good access to this thing so you can get down there and be able to maintain it. You'll also want to make sure you got that condensate, like you said, going someplace. It sounds like he has a pump, so that's good.
I actually know at this point that because I had a pump running and my pump failed and I haven't replaced it yet, so I just have a bucket collecting the condensate that I'm emptying, and I happen to know that mine produces about 3 gallons of water a week.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's a lot of water.
yeah.
That's interesting. I
Should be
kind of want to
flushing
do
your
mine
toilets with that.
I want to do mine and see what mine is compared to yours.
Yeah,
Yeah, why aren't you flushing your toilet with that?
A little gray water. Yeah.
I put it in the washing machine.
Excuse me, what?
I put it in the washing machine.
What?
Yeah, I dump it into the washing machine. Then the washing machine takes less water from the.
Does the
fill up.
washing machine fill up based on weight? I figured it just knew how much water it needed to add.
It fills up. The older ones filled up based on the load size that you chose.
Right,
and
that's
that
what
was a
I'm
setting.
saying.
Then I have a pretty new one that actually senses how much water it senses the load size.
So we should not recommend that people who don't have that feature do this, because if the washing machine says, I'm about to fill up with 3 gallons, and you already added 3 gallons, now you got 6.
I don't think we should recommend people do much of what we say on this show.
Brian's washing his clothes with this stuff.
It's clean. It's clean water.
Is it cleanish or is it
Crystal
clean?
clear.
Did you drink any of it?
No, but I would.
Crystal clear.
Are you bottling any of this water and selling it? I'm not sure that that's meant to be water that you can drink after it comes out of a water heater. Maybe it's not potable.
I mean, again, I'm not going to recommend that, but I bet it is.
Okay.
This is water that's in the air.
Right, but it is going through tubing inside a machine that maybe was not. They were not anticipating people would use it for drinking.
It's a piece of PEX.
You don't know what solvents they got going on in there and connections and potable water, man.
Okay.
Moving on.
Legionnaire's disease or something. Whatever. All right, let's go to the next question. We nailed that one.
That's a real hippie thing to do.
What is?
Congrats. To be, number one, not having a bucket or not having a pump, collecting in a bucket and then putting it into your washing machine to wash your clothes.
That's nice of you to say, Rob. However,
I'm applauding
I did have
you.
a pump and it failed, and I will get a new pump. And the washing machine's the closest place to dump it.
Yeah. Good.
It's right there.
Think you're better than us? Is that what this is?
Yeah. Brian's more sustainable than anybody.
The washing machine is the closest place for me to dump it as well. So, because we're in New England, so that washing.
What do you do
machine's
with
in the
yours?
basement.
You just run yours to the sump?
Mine goes in the sump pump. Yeah.
You got pumps on pumps over here.
Yeah.
I'm heat pumping it to the sump pump.
Yeah.
Do you have to pump it over there, or is it just?
Nah, it's just gravity.
It's just gravity. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's nice.
Let's hope. The hose is pretty full, probably. It's just a garden hose too. It's yeah.
Ooh, beautiful.
Yeah. I'm not sure what you're supposed to do for a hose. It doesn't
That's
really.
a little hippie thing.
That's pretty hippie.
I'm not using it to water my garden or anything. All right.
What are your dreadlocks?
Austin writes to us, "Hey fellas, short-time listener and recent magazine subscriber. Yeah, we should stop to note that people that are not current subscribers should become subscribers. What is it? Findhomebuilding.com/pod offer. Is that what I believe? I'd have to refer back to an older episode, but
We actually do recommend that you do the things we publish in the magazine.
yeah. Don't listen to Brian. Everything you hear here is great. All
Proven.
Right. Austin's I'm an accountant by day. Yes, it's actually as boring as it sounds. And carpenter by night. Thanks for putting out the podcast every week. It helps keep me sane. I'm remodeling a house and approaching the base casing phase. While I'm pretty excited about how things are turning out, casing choices gives me a bit of anxiety and have caused several arguments between my wife and I. I've got 2 cased openings that are about 7 foot wide and 6 inches higher than a standard door. I did this on purpose because I like the look of a large cased opening as a soft transition between spaces in an open concept house. I'd like to case the doors and windows in a craftsman style, but I'm afraid doing so on the higher openings because it would finish about 3 to 4 inches shy of the ceiling and could make the ceiling appear low and the scale look odd. What are your thoughts on mixing casing styles? My other options are using 3-inch flat stock on everything, which is cost effective but pretty boring, or doing craftsman style on the doors and windows, but use 3-inch flat stock on the cased openings. Side note for Rob, all trim will be painted white. I've hung 3-panel doors with black hinges and knobs. I had some pictures that we'll throw up on the blog at findhomebuilding.com/podcast. So I thought this was a good question because Brian is currently working with a very talented designer. What should we call her?
She's an architect.
She's an architect and designer. Marianne Cusado wrote the book, Get Your House Right. She also runs the column in the magazine called Design Build in every issue.
Correct.
And she is, in our next issue of the magazine, writing a longer article about choosing the right trim for every part of your house.
Correct.
So Brian has the golden answers to this gentleman's question.
Perfect.
Wow.
Please enlighten us, Brian.
Did Austin say how tall his ceilings were?
No.
No.
He just said that they're... so that's it. The one piece of information you needed, you don't have.
No, it's not. I want to.
It's a big factor, though, right?
Yeah, it is a big factor, and let's point out a couple of things.
All right.
At least one. Let's point out one thing for Austin that
He's gonna yell at us again.
It's getting animated.
that he doesn't need to mix and match styles to do something different around these openings. He can still treat them in a craftsman style, but treat them differently than he does the windows and the door casings.
Right. There's variations within a style.
There's variations within a style.
Yeah.
And there's different ways to treat the craftsman style. I don't know how Marianne would feel about what I'm about to say, but my gut instinct would be that you would do something a little bit bigger, proportionally bigger around these openings. And I was thinking almost of the first thing that jumped to mind and we can get back a little bit to the specifics of proportions in a moment, but the first thing that jumped from mind to me was to do some sort of like a paneled casing around this that actually, so that the head of it actually extended to the ceiling.
Right.
Because I see what he's getting at there when he says there'll only be a few inches from the ceiling. That can look awkward.
That could look weird.
Your trim gets too close to the ceiling. You have this little space up there.
Yep.
So I wonder if there's a detail that actually extends.
Well, I think what I would do, I would
ceiling.
consider there is a very small cornice molding, some sort of a supporting or crown type molding that runs around the whole perimeter at the ceiling, and have that go right onto this casing over
maybe
the door.
Even bump out around
That's
it.
what I'm saying.
Yeah, which is nice.
But you're right about scaling up. People screw this up a lot, and it looks goofy. If you have a big opening, you need to scale up your trim around that opening to make it look right. Otherwise, it looks weird.
Yeah, those trim elements don't look like they're playing a supporting role.
Right.
Yeah.
You got like this big span and this really thin trim.
Yeah, don't forget that trim is, especially craftsman style, which is like very literal, looks like a structure with the two legs, and then that cross piece looks like a header. It's supposed to give you the feel of this is doing a structural job. So for a big opening, it would need to be bigger to do that structural job, just like the header would have to be bigger. So you need to size it up to account for that.
So what are some things that he could do to size this trim up? It comes to mind that he could use plinth blocks at the base. So run the baseboard into some plinth blocks to set the tone right from the get-go.
Yep.
He could use the same casing, just larger.
Yeah, same. If it's flat stock, if he's doing 3.5 around the rest of the doors and windows, maybe up it to 4.5 or 5.5. I don't.
Yeah.
I'm not. I'd have to draw it. You know, I can't give you the number.
Yep. And then
trust your eye on this kind of stuff, though. Like if it doesn't feel right to you, you don't have it right yet.
Right.
You know, do mock-ups.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask you. I mean, I know that you, Justin, you work a lot in SketchUp to kind of fine-tune proportions. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with taking either scrap lumber or cardboard.
Even that will only get you so far, though, because you're looking at a world virtually on your computer screen. You're not standing.
You mean
in the
SketchUp
room.
will only get you so far?
So in SketchUp, you can build a room, and then you can position your point of view in the room
a certain height
and set it at like 6'2" for me, and look at a doorway and go, 6'2".
Really?
Yeah. How tall are you?
I'm just going to challenge that. 6'2". Jeez. 6'4". No big deal. Anyway. But what about mock-ups? Like, I know, on our last episode, granted it was a furniture context, but Mike Pekovich talked about the value of creating mock-ups.
Yeah.
Whether it's scrap wood or
blue tape on the wall would be a great way to do it.
Okay.
You could also do, like Brian said, a plinth block, one leg, and then a little short section of the top, just so you can kind of figure out how far does it project
just
past.
See a corner of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
See if you can reach the ceiling with something that looks good.
Which is often what you see on the outside of houses when they're figuring out proportions. They'll often do the very bottom skirt board and then a little bit of corner board, or maybe like right at the top for the roof. And the carpenters do that, and then they say, "Is this what you want?" And you're like, "Yep, looks good. Let's do it."
Yeah.
Very cool.
So don't overlook those mock-ups, and celebrate the big openings. Don't try and make them shrink back. Bring them right up.
Yeah.
And if you you might end up finding that you need those cased openings to be reduced in height or something. I don't like, if you find that you're too crunched up at the ceiling, maybe you can cheat them down a little bit to give you a little more, you can lower it, hopefully without feeling like you then have to duck when you go under it, like if it feels awkward that way, but you might be able to gain back some height.
Well, yeah, and I wondered too whether was Austin's idea a bad idea.
You mean fussing
terms
with the
of-
proportions of the rough opening?
Well, he mentioned that he brought these openings up higher than the other
Because it
other
was
door
so
heights
wide.
because he wanted to have this more seamless transition between spaces.
Yeah.
And if now he has to proportion them with a lot of trim, is he creating a more seamless connection, or is he actually creating a really marked distinction between spaces? And which one does he want to do? And is there potential to not trim this? Is there potential to wrap it with drywall?
That's the other option, yeah. If you want it to go away, you want to just wrap it with drywall.
You want to wrap it with drywall.
And in those cases, I would go with something real durable around that opening. This is kind of a side note, but something like that no coat.
Or a trim text or something like that.
Something that's really going to take a beating so that those stay nice and crisp.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point.
The baseboard becomes an issue there. you have to probably just wrap it
You'd have to wrap it around.
through the doorway and then.
Yeah.
But you're right. Seemingly to get what he's after was to have this not be a distinct opening at all.
Yeah, and
Don't trim it
and
out.
our first suggestions
Yeah,
are making it more distinct.
Yeah.
Well, you got 2 ways to go.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Choose your
you're
poison.
right. If you
So-
want it to disappear, then just wrap it with drywall.
Yeah.
Don't trim it out.
So I mean, for the people who are listening to this who don't have a sort of such a specific situation, but are curious about trim proportions, some of the things that we'll learn in Marianne's article are the idea that to proportion your trim based on ceiling height.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, she's going to have this. Let me see if I can look at this for a moment. She's going to have this great.
Oh, he's got the article right here.
Yeah, well, I got the drawing. She's going to have this great sort of chart of baseboard heights where she gets really specific. If you have 8-foot ceiling, your baseboard should be 3 1/4 to 4.5 inches tall. If you got 9-foot ceilings, 5.5 inches. 10-foot ceilings,
Yeah.
and just going up from there. And she even shows how to adjust the moldings in there. She also says, proportion your trim based on the importance of the room. So first floor, living spaces, get bigger trim, more elaborate trim. Go up into the bedrooms, scale it down.
That's really interesting.
Maybe
Yeah.
you scale it up again in the master bedroom, but not in the accessory bedrooms.
keep those hallways quiet too.
Yeah, and that's
a good
really
idea.
that's really a traditional.
Visually quiet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's like, okay.
Just Rob. Just
what
bring
kind
it
of trim
down a little
profile do you use for controlling acoustics?
bit. Well, you want it to have a soft curve at the top. You want it to,
Rapid and burlap.
yeah. Carpet.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah, so those are-
we've commented this about Marianne and her approach to is like just the hard and fast rules, that she just gets to the essence of it, that you could just be, okay, I'm going to do that. And not
Right.
like, all right, how do I have to interpret that for there's always a level of interpretation, but she takes you most of the way there. That's cool.
It's the same thing that I always say on this thing is learn the rules and then you can break them. It's the same deal.
Catchphrase by Justin Fink.
And I think what a lot of
Learn the rules
people,
before you break them.
I think what a lot of people who do molding design on their own, maybe trim carpenters, are gonna get a lot of value from this. And one of the things that I really liked is how she broke down crown molding and explained that, explained the difference between crown and cornice, and how you can build a cornice if you have tall ceilings and you really want to have something with bigger proportions up by the ceiling, that you can do that. There's nothing architecturally wrong with that, but she's going to teach us how to build a cornice.
Yeah, don't do
and
it-
not just
Yeah.
double up crown or make your crown really big.
Yeah, the
but build a
huge
cornice.
crown thing.
Yeah, where a crown is simply the top piece of the cornice.
Right. You
Yeah.
can't cheat it by just having a huge piece of crown. And
Right.
Although I will say that in some historic buildings, especially like old retail spaces, like old mills and like old drugstores in brick buildings in downtown areas, those often had big like tin moldings.
Yeah.
And those, I think, that's probably, it's clearly designed for the same kind of a look, but they do feel like they want to be big. And that's a different thing, I guess. Those are usually very high ceilings.
Yeah.
So
I'd have to
I
look at those.
don't. I guess what I'm trying to clarify is that I don't fully agree with her, or I'm curious what she would say about that.
Well, I guess
How's that different?
And we'd have to look at those, even though those are one piece. Even though they're built of one piece and we call them a molding,
Yeah.
are they actually the parts of a cornice?
Right. They might be.
Within that piece.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So we'd have to look at that now that I know what a cornice
When
is.
is this article scheduled to run?
This is in our March issue,
Yeah, coming right up.
so
Cool.
it'll be out in January.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's going to be a really cool issue, I think. Okay, we got another question. One more. Brett writes to us, "Hi again, guys. You might recall that you answered my question about skim coating or just redoing all my textured drywall. Just wanted to say thanks again for your suggestions." I don't think I was on that show, so I apologize, Brett.
Yeah, I don't think you
The
were.
advice probably wasn't as good as if I were hosting, but I appreciate your kind feedback anyway. Just let that hang.
All right.
He thanked us, buddy.
Yeah.
Brett has another question on the topic of his poorly insulated house. I'm trying to decide if I should insulate our floors, and I've got some questions. Currently, our crawl space is about 3 to 4 feet of clearance, so it's not totally unbearable under the house, and I'd most likely do the work myself. The floors get very cold in the winter, though, with plenty of rugs down, so it's leading me to believe that it's just an energy sink, not to mention a less than comfortable home. To make this a little easier, let me start by breaking things down. So basically, Brett's got a whole list of questions, and I figured Well, why don't we just take these one at a time? So I'm interested for the lightning round here.
Did he say vented crawl space?
He did not say.
Okay.
Can we assume?
Well, if he's gonna, we want to assume if he's
some
gonna
assumptions.
insulate the floors that it is a vented crawl space. But does he know the difference?
Okay.
Before we start answering questions, it would be helpful.
So do you want to? Okay. Back to the hypothetical.
Isn't this just refer to question 1 where we talked about vented crawl spaces versus unvented?
So refer to that one.
Sealed?
Okay.
And in this instance, let's
We're gonna
suggest
assume-
that he should be insulating his floor.
Okay.
There's no mechanicals in the crawl space, nothing like that. Because if there were, then he would not want to be
And it's not sealed. We're
it's not
assuming
sealed.
that it's not sealed.
cold. Yes.
Well, not mechanicals in the crawl space. What are you talking about? Oh, you mean things that need combustion air? Is that what you're concerned?
No, I'm just saying
Or
if
things
there's,
that should
if there's
be in
mechanicals and
conditioned
there's
environment.
there's plumbing down there, then stop right there and don't insulate your floor.
Seal your crawl
Oh,
space.
I see what you're saying. I'm sorry.
Yeah. You have to address that. You have to bring that into the condition. All that plumbing, all that HVAC, whatever's down there into the condition envelope.
Yeah. Refer to question 1.
Okay. But let's just say
Let's assume that he's decided he wants to insulate his
yes.
floor.
It's a good assumption.
He wants to know first, should I just use bats? He's worried about rodents making a home in them at some point.
I got hung up on the just part.
Me too.
Yeah.
Well,
Of course you did. So no, don't just use bats. a lot of other things to do in addition to using bats.
he does say later I'd like to air seal before insulation.
Yeah, but he said that after.
That's
That was question number 1. Sorry, I'm getting really take it very literally.
But you read all the questions, Rob. Okay.
Just pointing out.
Okay. But we have no problem with bats, assuming that they're part of a more robust system, which we will outline shortly.
Bats are an excellent insulation.
What type of bats?
Like you mean face or unfaced?
No, I mean material.
Oh, like fiberglass bats.
Okay, not mineral wool.
I know you're a big fan of mineral wool. Either or.
Are you not?
I haven't really used it much.
Oh, okay.
I've only used it in instances where I've had to use it, like
It's not about me being a fan. It's just that he has a couple of options.
yeah. I mean, is he going to use
Ryan, what do you think?
What is it, recycled denim? Cotton? Do you want him to use cotton bats?
All right.
That'd be a good hippie move.
Bring back hemp?
Any problem with bats, Brian?
Not
Stumped him.
not fundamentally, no. Depends on the rest of the assembly.
this is-
How he's going to do it.
This is going well.
Yes, he could use bats. He could consider bats. He could consider all types of bats, fiberglass, mineral wool.
He's
Yes,
concerned
a
that
bat.
if he does use bats, whether it's okay to use those little metal rods that you use to hold insulation up in a ceiling, because he has heard that they compress the bats and reduce their insulation value.
Only do a little bit at that point of contact.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about that.
I wouldn't
You could
worry about that
You could
either.
strap the ceiling if you wanted to, but I don't think this is really a real problem that you need to worry too much about. Anybody else disagree?
Nope.
Okay. If I do use bats, should I then put down a vapor barrier, or is that not really necessary? There's a fair amount of venting around the house, and the dirt is typically dry, though I'm sure at times it's a tad moist,
So there we go. It's vented.
and it has a dirt floor.
It has a dirt floor. It's a tad moist.
It's a tad moist.
Yep.
Vapor barrier? You could always, if you were worried about it, you could always go with like a smart vapor retarder.
Yeah.
Something, and just sleep well at night, knowing that if it is letting a little moisture through, it's going to be able to get out again.
Applied to the bottom of the floor joist.
Sure.
After the bats.
Sure.
Yeah.
So like something like the Intello
Yep,
is a
Intello.
brand that we talk about a lot. Who makes that? Is that the brand?
That's the brand,
That's
but
the
I think
brand.
it's only sold through, what is it, 475 Building Supply?
Yeah.
I always get the number wrong, I think.
It's 475.
It
I
is
forget what the
475.
rest of it is.
Yeah. Or Certainty makes a smart membrane.
Oh, yeah, membrane.
Membrane, like
Yeah.
brain. Yeah.
Could he use this as his air barrier? Could he detail it to be his air barrier?
You can make it.
Yeah.
You can make those air barriers.
Yeah.
That Intello product
Both of
is being used. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is being used as an air barrier. Yeah.
You can.
The one thing about that
caulk and
Intello-
tape the seams.
It's kind of a side note, but the cool thing about that Intello product is that you could also use it as your if you're doing dense pack cellulose, you could use it as your scrim.
Yeah.
So you can dense pack.
Dense pack. Okay.
Okay. He doesn't want to use spray foam because it feels really permanent, and who knows what the future holds for us with this place. Plus, it's a bit more expensive from what he's gathered.
This was his. I'm laughing because that was his concern with the first question he sent in, is he didn't want to necessarily do all the work to
That's
to
right.
fix his walls.
Yeah, he's got
they were.
some additions planned.
Yeah, he's got some additions planned, and Yeah.
I mean, so long as he air seals really well.
Yeah, I mean, bats
He
you
should
can
be
take
all right.
out again. No problem.
Yeah.
I'm kind of with him on the spray foam. I wonder, we were talking about this at lunch the other day, wondering what's the future of remodeling look like with all these new materials we're using, all these peel and stick membranes and closed cell foams.
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
very messy, very frustrating.
all of the different,
Very
it's not
expensive.
really like standard assemblies. Well, there are standard, but there
for
are
the
these
most
fringy
part.
assemblies that people are doing now where they're kind of inventing their own walls and trying new things.
Yeah, it's actually, in light of potential remodeling for him, bats actually become an even better product because you can take them out easy, put them
Reuse them.
back in,
Yeah.
reuse them somewhere else.
And lest anybody think that we are somehow giving bats a bad name, we think bats work fantastic as long as you air seal and control air movement.
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
they're just trickier to detail than maybe people would think. That's all.
Right. Yes.
To do it well.
And you
Installing
have to
bats well.
and you have to take a lot of time around when you're fitting around pipes and
Right.
electrical outlets and that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
and making sure that they completely fill the cavity.
Right.
yeah.
It's just they're just not as easy as everyone might expect them to be or treat them as. He wants to know, would it be a problem to insulate under just half the house, basically ignoring the kitchen and small addition, which are both on the north side and have very little crawl space clearance? Well, it sounds to me like he just doesn't want to do those because they don't have very good crawl space clearance. But I think we know the answer is, you got to insulate those too.
Get under there.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Dig a little
It's fine.
dig a little trench for yourself to crawl through.
Yeah.
Lastly, the R value recommended for me via Energy Star ratings is R19 to R25. Any negative to going as high as the 25 outside of just the cost?
No.
Nope. I mean, diminishing benefit. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
when there's a diminishing return on insulation the more you put in.
But I don't think he's.
But I don't think you're close to
getting
that
there.
yet.
I think once you get up to like R60, R80, and above, maybe that starts to become
There's
a point of
also-
conversation, but not at R25.
There's also the caveat of what can you fit in your framing, though. I mean, there is, like, if you buy insulation made for 2x10s, you can cram it into 2x8s, and it will be better than 2x8 insulation, but it won't be as good as if you put that in.
Right.
Yeah, it lowers its like R value per inch, but you still have like a
you won't-
higher overall
Overall
R
R
value.
value.
You won't,
than the
you won't
other.
get what's on the label.
Yeah.
But
Right.
you'll get better than you would if you went with the next size down.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Is that a good way to sum it up?
Yeah, there was just another conversation. We don't have to really get into it.
You sure?
It's just about like the whole wall R values and things like that, where
okay.
yeah, it's a rabbit hole.
Rabbit hole Rob.
Okay, we'll save that for another show.
Rabbit
Yeah.
hole Rob.
Let's do a whole show on it.
On whole wall.
Yeah, all right.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
put
right.
that in your notes, Justin.
Look for that soon, I guess. All right.
Cool.
That's all we got for today. Keep those questions flowing. FHBpodcast@taunton.com. And give us a follow on Facebook, Instagram, all the places. And be sure to check out that magazine subscription offer. FindHomebuilding.com/pod offer, I believe, is the URL. And if you're not a reader of the magazine or a subscriber to the website, and you like what you're hearing on this show, you are definitely going to like those other two things as well.
Mm-hmm.
They are even deeper, even nerdier, even more thorough, and they come with lots of photos and illustrations that we can't do when we're talking to you. So, until next time, we will talk to y'all guys later. This is Justin for Brian and Rob saying happy building and keep craft alive.